What's up, everyone? It's Dakota, and welcome back to another Modern video. And we just wrapped up Pro Tour Modern Horizons 3, and it was a heck of an event, to say the least. We got a lot of interesting matches of Magic through the Swiss portion of the event, but when it was all said and done, we knew what was coming. And even though we all saw it coming, we knew what was going to happen. We couldn't help but kind of, avert our eyes from the train crash that we expected to have happen. And probably one of the most dominant Pro Tour performances of a deck of all time. Just we'll get into all that. I have a few videos talking about day 1, day 2, and the top 8. So if any of that interests you, go ahead and check out those videos to kind of get a little bit more of a review and a breakdown. Of course, leave your thoughts and everything that we can do to try to improve those. It's kind of my first crack at a video series like that, breaking down the Pro Tour day by day. So, maybe we'll kind of expand on that because it was actually a lot of fun. A lot of fun to do, on top of the fact that they also seemed like they were received very well. So we'll be looking to do that more in the future. And if you want to see more videos from me in the future where we talk mainly about the modern Pioneer format and doing some fun longer form videos as well, be sure to subscribe to the channel and ring notification bell so you know when those future videos get posted. And it is a free, easy way to support me and my content. As I say it in every video, and I do genuinely mean it. The community that we are creating here is awesome, getting a lot of feedback, talking with a lot of people in the comments and things like that. So it's been a lot of fun for me, and we just kind of continue going forward, until morale improves in the modern format, because we're definitely going to need some morale improvement after what happened. So if you don't want any spoilers or anything like that, go ahead, check out those other videos, watch whatever Pro Tour matches you want to watch, etc., and then you can come back to this. But the TLDR on the modern format, I think, have found a potential Tier 0 deck in the format. So Nadu, unsurprisingly for a lot of people, took over the Pro Tour. It was 25% of the metagame between the Bant version and the 4-color version, with the Bant version having just under 21%, I believe it was 20.4% of the meta for just the Bant version, and then it was a little over 5% for the 4-color version. So for a total package of 25%, I think this was, Wizards intentionally trying to keep them. I mean, they do essentially play the same, just you're playing black cards like Thoughtseize and Thoughtseize. I believe I saw an Inquisition, but I'm not entirely confident on that. But at least Thoughtseize and Orcish Bowmaster as part ways that you can kind of interact with your opponent. I'm not sure exactly what other cards that you're playing black for to be able to do that sort of thing. Maybe someone in the comments can kind of let me know, because the Bant version just absolutely dominated the Pro Tour start to finish. We saw that the Bant Nadu decks had something like a near 60% win rate in day 1. We saw the undefeated player 8-0 after day 1 lose 2 games and just absolutely dominate the Bant Nadu mirror. We've seen them, end up beating up on a lot of the other players as well, with the few other matches that they played that were non-Nadu mirror matches. And the deck overall was just super insane. But the only blemish on the weekend being that the top-seeded player wasn't a Nadu player, but actually a mono-black Necrodominance player. So, in the first to qualify, a 15-1 record after 2 days of competition, absolutely cruising into the top 8, and just absolutely nuts. An insane run from Noah Ma. Shout out to them, as they just played incredible over the weekend. Just couldn't get it done in the top 8. A little unfortunate, but again, playing in a Pro Tour where the most played deck in the format also had by far the best win percentage, especially with such a large sample size as well, which is unheard of. Saffron Olive tweet basically made it perfectly clear, and the reality of a situation is usually when you see a 60% win rate, you see someone that did well at the Pro Tour, but there was 1 or 2 copies of that archetype, and both players or one player did really well, and you'll kind of see that 60%. And I think 60% for one really good player when it's the only person playing a deck is pretty good. But when you go even further and you have, you know, a quarter of the field, or in this case, like a fifth of the field playing a certain deck, and the entirety of the field, you know, again, 1/5 of the field has a near 60% win rate with a deck, that's just absolutely insane. You know, a better win rate than a better win rate with as large of a sample size, and even some that had like maybe close to like the same sample size or whatever just didn't stack up. We saw Ruby Storm fall absolutely flat on its face. Kaibuda said in, you know, his interview, like talking about his deck, that it felt great in game ones. It felt absolutely unstoppable in game ones, and it was just trying to win the sideboarded games and didn't seem like it could actually win the sideboarded games. So, you know, Ruby Storm going forward is yet to kind of be seen what is going to happen with that deck, if it's going to see any kind of evolution to kind of combat sideboard cards, or if it's just going to kind of relegate itself to like the bottom of tier 1, maybe a tier 2 deck. Because let's be honest, like how bad can a deck be when it can win the game on turn 2 in multiple different ways? But I think going forward, if we're going to see Nadu legal, especially for the RCQ season, you know, this is just like my opinion of the Modern format currently. If you have the things to build Nadu, you have the capability of playing it, whatever it is, and it is legal during the regional championship qualifier season, or God forbid, even the regional championship, if we actually get that far with this card being legal, it is absolutely far and away the best deck to play. At this point, I don't care how much hate people play. I just don't care, because it's very much like clearly proven that it is the best deck in the format. Absolutely insane win rate through day 1, day 2, put 5 copies in the top 8, 4 copies into the semifinals, and then obviously a mirror match in the finals, where, you know, the mirror matches a lot of the time felt like, you know, the person on the play has to have the combo very quickly, so then they can try to beat whatever interaction that the other player has, and the other player is just hoping to have enough interaction long enough to where they're able to interact plus be able to enact their combo. And at least, you know, I think the Yawgmoth mirror matches and like the Yawgmoth deck as like a creature combo deck was a lot more interesting, because while the Nadu deck and the, you know, Yawgmoth are not necessarily like deterministic and whatnot, the Nadu deck just felt like it had a lot better creatures. It felt like it had a lot better overall consistency of the deck. And while consistency is not something that is worth banning, because if that was the case, then like Burn would have been banned, you know, like years and years ago, or at least cards from that deck would have been banned. But, you know, when you mix power level with the amount of consistency and, you know, the very low fail rate, and just kind of how all these cards end up synergizing well together when they're all on the board, and even individually, where like Springheart and Tuku was a card that, you know, I was like, okay, this does some really cool things, you know, but it's not going to be busted. And it turns out with, you know, Nadu just getting to do its best impression of like Risen Reef and getting to do it every turn and giving that ability to all creatures, turns out like that is just a very busted combination, you know, a Kobe Shaq kind of a combination, if you will. And while there was some interesting plays from the Pro Tour and how to like protect what exactly was going on, you know, and make sure that your Springheart and Tuku's got to exist so that you could then make land drops, make insect tokens to have more targets for Nadu plus Shuko, and it just crazy. My brain is fried from the bird mirrors, you know, where there is kind of a decent amount of play to them, you know, but in general, a lot of it did feel kind of, you know, very streamlined of like, if I'm on the play, I'm trying to win the game as fast as possible. And if my opponent somehow feels like that they are going to be able to be faster than me, then I need to be able to disrupt whatever they're doing. And definitely felt like a lot of times that if you were the person to go for it first and your opponent had the right kind of interaction, they were just going to steal your Nadu. They were going to steal whatever creature that you ended up playing that was going to help, you know, that they were missing from their combo. So then they can set up their combo and win. And just overall feels like a miserable play experience. And while the Nadu decks in Moto, you know, they will probably not see that much play. Well, they'll see a lot of play, but, you know, what we saw from the Pro Tour is essentially this loop of, you know, making endurances, shuffling lands back into your deck. You're making tokens, and then you're making endurance copies to then like keep this going. You're netting mana, and then you're besieging all your opponent's lands. You're auto-warring all their permanents that are, you know, really just all their permanents. Like, non-land permanents, I should say, and then passing the turn with a bunch of 1/1s and 3/4, a library that still has cards in it, and your opponent has to find a way to then stop you from winning the game. And unless you're the person that, you know, has lands in hand and then also registered fog in your deck, you're getting that land blown up as well, and, you know, you're just in the same position that you were before, and, you know, they combo a few more times just to make some more tokens, because why not? You know, a true Splinter Twin situation, you know, happening at the Pro Tour. And again, there's some interesting things going on. I think there is kind of like a skill level that you need to be able to reach to play the deck. And when we see it like in Moto, we will probably still see people playing like Thassa's Oracle. At least, you know, when you're playing the other, you know, when you're playing this version and you're like, okay, I'm going to go through the loop a few times. I'm going to do it like 4 or 5 times. I'm going to, you know, make 4 or 5 copies of this, of Endurance, and then I'm going to be able to make however many tokens along the way as well. Sometimes, I would imagine some amount of the time it's not going to win the game, because you're not going to have time to really go through and like besage you all your opponent's lands and then Otawara them. More than likely, you could probably just besage you their lands and stuff and like really probably be okay for the most part. But nonetheless, it's going to be something that's kind of slow. I would expect the Nadu win rates to be a little bit lower than 60% in paper, you know, where they're probably still going to have to play maybe a Thassa's Oracle to be able to win the game or whatnot. Or maybe some people just end up making a ton of tokens and just, you know, going past the Beseiju plus Otawara lines and then just hoping that their opponent doesn't have anything to do, or maybe just going and Beseijuing their lands. But either way, feels like a very miserable play experience for the person having to play against the deck. The decks that we thought would perform well against Nadu, the Jeskai control deck, there was one in the top 8 piloted by probably one of the best players at the event in Javier Dominguez. And, you know, even though it went up 2-0 pretty swiftly on Simon Nielsen, the eventual champion of Pro Tour Modern Horizons 3, just turns out was not able to, you know, win a third game, even being on the play twice against Nadu. So, you know, overall, you know, Nadu probably needs to see some sort of ban. You know, I've seen, you know, arguments for getting rid of like Springheart and Tuku, getting rid of Shuko, you know, but I think overall, like, the deck has to just end with Nadu getting banned, hopefully before the regional championship qualifying season for Modern. I think the health of the format really does kind of hinge on it. You know, what does that then mean for the entirety of the Modern format going forward? Well, it means that we can actually play Magic again. You don't have to worry about, you know, Nadu the Bird Wizard, but you have to worry about Slickshot the Bird Wizard. You know, hopefully the more superior of the two, but very clearly not, because again, Nadu just absolutely dominated one of the highest levels of competition in its debut Pro Tour. And people thought it was okay because, you know, the other decks were winning Moto challenges, and it turns out like Nadu hadn't even reached like its first form, you know, just like, you know, Frieza coming in looking like half robot, you know, half, you know, whatever the hell Frieza is, and just like, oh, you know, like this guy's no threat at all, like no problem. And then like Nadu just reached like its second gear and then just absolutely left everyone in the dust. A true, you know, just blazer of trails, I guess, because again, just leaving everybody firmly in the dust. Like, the Necro decks were sweet, the Jeskai control deck, there's a ton of decks they showed off over the weekend that looked awesome, and they looked like a lot of fun to play. And while I think Nadu getting banned probably means that like the Necro Dominance decks are going to get an extra hard look at them, just because, again, #1 seed at the Pro Tour, Necro Dominance is feels just as good as like Necropotence, it feels like in a lot of cases. And you're able to kind of abuse drawing the extra cards by getting to pitch them, get value, gain life, whatever, to set up Necro Dominances in the future. You know, so that's a deck that we could probably see going forward that could rise to prominence if there is a Nadu banning, which I think there absolutely should be. You know, Wizards doesn't really errata things unless they're just plainly missing text, or there's just some kind of confusion on cards or whatnot, they're misprinted, something like that. Normally they don't errata cards to then like allow them to exist in the format, kind of like reminiscent of something like what Yu-Gi-Oh does, where they'll add text to another card and then they'll reprint it and whatnot, and then just hope that players can kind of, you know, learn what it does, even if like the card that they're playing specifically doesn't say it. You know, there's new rules text for those cards, and I don't see that happening for Nadu. I think after kind of the bad taste the Pro Tour has left in everybody's mouth, from the people, you know, watching the event, to the people having to commentate it, to even the players playing it and just asking just for this card to absolutely just be banned. You know, just a crazy Pro Tour. Absolutely insane what had happened. Basically, the only thing we can hope for is that this does not go on for too long, and that we, you know, get kind of this fresh format before going into the RCQ season, or even banning Nadu just before the RCQ season and just telling people in the format, hey, figure it out. You know, this is a new format. You know, some of the cards that you were like playing because it hated out on Nadu, well, guess what? Like, you don't have to play these cards anymore, essentially. Go ahead and figure it out. Figure out the format, and like we'll see the format evolve during the regional championship qualifying season. So as far as like what will happen to Modern, hopefully something. You know, it just insane that this deck exists. You know, I thought Bird Summer was just going to be kind of a meme. You know, we're like, yeah, this deck does something really powerful, but you know, how good is it going to be? And it absolutely, I think, blew out even like the expectations of like a lot of people. Just being the most played deck, being the most dominant deck in not only at this Pro Tour, but, you know, probably in Pro Tour history, like pretty damn close, like top 3 in the worst case. And, you know, again, this deck was a known commodity going into the event. Players knew that this deck existed. You know, I've seen people talking about the colorless Eldrazi decks and the other Eldrazi decks kind of being relatively unknown before the event, and, you know, having a pretty low percentage of the metagame there. And that's probably the only knock on that deck, as it just completely dominated its Pro Tour. But this one, people knew about it, and they were able to, you know, find ways like, how can we hate this out? How can we, you know, improve the mirror match if we play the mirror, what have you? And most played deck, best win rate. Even the 4-color build had a very strong win rate for how much of it was actually played at the Pro Tour. Dominated the top 8, beat every single deck that was not Nadu, and then had 3 Nadu mirrors to close out the semifinals and the finals. This deck needs to go. Nadu is absolutely a problem, and probably is another, you know, 3-mana Simic card that can never come back to the format. So, yeah, Pro Tour, as far as like the top 8, absolute disaster. Day 1 and Day 2, great, showing off some of the more powerful decks in the format that are not Nadu, the Bird Wizard Man. So, really, I think past the best performing deck in the Pro Tour, I think Modern is in pretty good hands with Modern Horizons 3. I think, aside from like Nadu, I think Modern Horizons 3 has pushed Modern into a good place. You know, and it's weird to say that now, and probably not correct to say it now, but I think overall Modern Horizons 3, aside from Nadu, has created a pretty compelling Modern format that I want to see explored, you know, once we get Nadu out of the format, or some way to completely just, you know, nerf Nadu and like shoot it in the foot or whatever, or I guess the beak or whatever. At this point, I don't even care what gets hit. It needs something. We need to take it out of the skies, you know. But, you know, that's gonna do it for me in this video. I hope y'all enjoyed kind of the discussion. I hope y'all check out the Day 1, Day 2, and Top 8 recaps of Pro Tour Modern Horizons 3. Again, it's something new that I decided to do on the channel, so I would definitely like any sort of feedback that I can get, whether it's about the stuff that we talk about in it, what should be included, what not, and things like that. There's definitely some improvements that I already want to make that I kind of have in mind, so, you know, be on the lookout for that once we get to Worlds, because I think we're going to do it for the World Championship going and taking place, I believe, here in like a few months at MagicCon Las Vegas. So be on the lookout for that. Of course, subscribe to the channel, ring notification bell, so you can support me and my content. It's a free, easy way of doing so. Makes me really happy, and, you know, just allows us to absolutely like crush it like in the algorithms and stuff like that. So I do greatly appreciate it. But yeah, that's going to do it for me this video. Hope you all enjoyed it. I hope to see you all in the next one.